I'm not proud of how much of myself I buried just to keep that office running. I don't mean deadlines or late nights. I mean the pieces of dignity you give away one at a time, hoping someone will notice the effort. They never do. And the night everything snapped didn't start big. It started with a room full of people who had no idea they were watching me hit my limit. The office party wasn't some corporate budget event. It was mine, my money, my time, my weekend spent hunting down cheap decorations because our manager forgot the date. I paid for the catering deposit. I picked the venue when he said, just choose anything decent. I built the playlist. I even ironed the stupid table covers myself because the event company charged extra for it. I told myself it didn't matter as long as people had a good night. That's who I was. The reliable guy, the calm guy, the one who patched holes before anyone else saw the leaks. People liked me. They just didn't see me. By the time the party started, I was exhausted in a way caffeine can't fix. Everyone was laughing, drinking, already forgetting what it took to make the room look effortless. I stood near the back, just watching, letting the noise wash over me. Honestly, I didn't want recognition. I just didn't want to be stepped on. Then our manager, Clark, clinked his glass like he was calling a royal court to attention. He had his perfect smile on, the one that made people forget he never actually did anything. Let's take a moment, he said, pausing dramatically, to thank the person responsible for tonight. For a second, I actually straightened up. Not because I expected anything, but because maybe, just maybe, he'd surprise me. Instead, he turned to my coworker, Ethan. This guy right here, Clark grinned, gripping Ethan's shoulder. He organized everything, booked the place, handled the logistics. Absolute star. Applause flooded the room. People cheered. Someone whistled. Ethan looked like a deer caught in headlights, shaking his head, trying to speak. But Clark cut him off with a playful shove. Don't be humble, man. You killed it. I didn't move. I didn't blink. It felt like the laughter pressed against my skin, like the whole room was leaning on me, waiting to see if I'd react. I swallowed hard, breathed out through my nose, and stared at the floor. I could feel my ears burning, that slow, crawling heat that comes right before something cracks inside you. Ethan looked across the room and met my eyes. I'll never forget his face. Apology, panic, a silent plea that said, I swear I didn't do this. I believed him. Ethan wouldn't steal credit. Clark would. My colleagues clapped a little longer than necessary. A few glanced at me with that awkward sympathy you give someone when you don't know what to say. I forced a smile so thin it probably looked painful. It should have ended there. Just another day of being invisible. But as Clark kept rambling, someone behind him shifted. A woman from HR, quiet, sharp, always observing. Her name was Melissa. She wasn't talking, wasn't smiling, just watching Clark with an expression I couldn't read. Not pity, not confusion, something colder. Our eyes met for maybe a second. Then she looked away and slipped out of the room without a word. I didn't think much of it at the time. People leave parties all the time. But that tiny moment, her silence, the way she stared at Clark, the way she walked out as if something clicked for her, that was the first tremor, the one you ignore because you think it's nothing. I stayed through the speeches, the toasts, the laughter. I accepted a plastic cup of warm wine and pretended everything was fine. That's what I always did. Smile, nod, let it pass. Except it didn't pass. When the music got louder and the lights dimmed, I stepped outside to get some air. Behind me, through the windows, I saw Clark slapping Ethan on the back, bragging to a group of people about how hard it was to pull this thing together. My event, my money, his performance. And as I stood there in the cold, alone on the balcony, something in me stopped bending. It didn't snap. Not yet. But it stiffened, like a wire pulled too tight. I didn't go back inside. I didn't join the group photos. I didn't wait for people to leave so I could help clean up like I always did. Instead, I turned and walked away without telling anyone, past the smokers, past the parking lot, past the point where I usually force myself to care. As I opened my car door, I caught a glimpse of someone standing near the corner of the building. Melissa again. She wasn't on her phone. She wasn't heading to her car. She was just watching the door, like she was waiting for something. And when she noticed me, she didn't smile or wave. She just nodded once, slow, deliberate, then walked off into the dark. At the time, I didn't understand what that meant. But nothing about that night was random, and nothing about what came next was an accident. But that was just the beginning. The following Monday, the office looked exactly the same. Gray carpet, buzzing lights, screens glowing with spreadsheets that didn't care who paid for anyone's good time. People moved a little slower, yawning, carrying leftover hangovers in paper coffee cups. On the surface, nothing had changed. The change was in me. "Hey, party legend," one of the guys from sales. Mark called as I walked in. "Killer night." I forced a short smile. "Yeah, glad everyone enjoyed it." "You and Ethan nailed it," he added, already turning back to his screen. I didn't correct him. I just walked to my desk, set my bag down, and opened my laptop with that careful, controlled movement you use when you're holding back something sharp. Clark showed up 10 minutes late, same as always, Starbucks in hand, Bluetooth in his ear, talking loudly about Q3 alignment to nobody who'd asked. He did a slow lap around the floor, slapping shoulders, doing his little "I'm one of you guys" performance. He stopped by my desk, leaned his hip against the divider. "Great party, man," he said. "Seriously, you guys really made me look good." "You guys." I looked up at him. "You're welcome," I said. No smile, no warmth, just words. He didn't notice. He never did. "I've got a leadership call at 9, he continued. "They loved the photos. Might want to replicate the format at a regional level." He winked. "We'll see." "We." He walked away before I could answer. The day bled into the usual. Emails, reports, weirdly urgent, quick questions that ate half an hour. Around noon, an all-hands invite popped up on my calendar, sent by Clark. Team Sync, celebrating recent wins. 30 minutes later, we were all crowded into the meeting room, air thick with coffee and fake enthusiasm. Clark stood at the front, hands clasped, smile dialed up. "First of all," he began, "I want to thank everyone for your hard work on the recent rollout. It's been a massive effort, but I want to call out a couple of people specifically. I already knew what was coming. I think part of me hoped to be wrong. Ethan," he said, "you've really stepped up lately. From taking initiative on the client workshops to pulling together the team for the party, you've been crucial in building our culture here." People clapped. Ethan shifted in his chair, red climbing up his neck. He glanced at me, then at the table. "And of course," Clark continued, "I've been putting in some extra hours smoothing things over with leadership, making sure our wins are visible at the top." He said it like he was doing us a favor, like he'd carried us on his back. Not a word about who wrote the documentation, who stayed late every night the week before launch, who answered clients on weekends. I didn't need the credit to survive, but it was like watching someone steal from your living room while you smiled and poured them a drink. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't interrupt. I sat there, hands folded, feeling that old familiar weight settle in my chest, the one I'd been mistaking for being a team player for years. When the meeting ended, chairs scraped, people filtered out. Ethan hung back, hovering awkwardly by the door until it was just the two of us. "Hey," he said, not quite looking at me. "About the party. I tried to say something, man. He just—" "I know," I cut in quietly. "Not on you." He swallowed, nodding. Still, it didn't feel right. "That's kind of his specialty," I said. Before Ethan could answer, someone cleared their throat. Melissa stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, expression neutral. "Clark asked me to grab you for 5 minutes," she told Ethan. "You too," she added, glance flicking to me. "If you're free?" We followed her down the hallway, but halfway there she slowed and looked at me over her shoulder. It was quick, almost nothing, but I caught it, that small measuring look. Actually, she said, turning to Ethan, he needs you first. Meeting room B. I'll find you later, she added to me. Ethan shrugged and kept going. Melissa and I stood there for a second, alone in the hallway. You left early on Friday, she said. I nodded. Yeah, long week. Her eyes stayed on me a fraction of a second too long. I saw the vendor invoice, she said. For the event? The one with your card on it? I didn't answer. She gave a tiny nod, more to herself than to me. We'll talk, she said quietly, when you're ready. Then she walked away. It should have felt like something. A lifeline, a promise, a crack in the wall. Instead, it just felt strange, like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't realize was suffocating me. The rest of the week was a highlight reel of small thefts. Clark forwarded my carefully written email to his boss with a single line. Summarized my thoughts here. He presented my slide deck in a leadership meeting and told the room, I whipped this up last night, so bear with me. He threw me into a last-minute call with a difficult client, then later told everyone, we smoothed things over. We. Always we. When I'd first started there, I told myself it was normal. Managers take credit. That's how it works. Suck it up, pay your dues, blah, blah, blah. You rationalize it because the alternative is admitting you're being used. By Thursday, the rationalizing was gone. All that was left was a cold, flat irritation that didn't flare up, just hummed. I started watching more closely. Clark never sent full emails, only forwards with comments like, see below or handle this. He CC'd his boss on anything that made him look good, and left us alone with anything that didn't. When something went wrong, he appeared in your inbox with, can we discuss where this went off the rails? When something went right, he appeared in someone else's office with, I've been pushing the team hard on this. I'd always noticed it. I just hadn't let myself name it. On Friday afternoon, I stayed late to finish a report he'd promised to glance at before sending it upstairs. The office thinned out, lights dimmed row by row. At 7:30, it was just me and the cleaning crew. As I packed my bag, my phone buzzed. Email. Subject line. Quick check-in from Melissa. Still around? She wrote. If not, Monday's fine. Just want to run something by you. I stared at the screen for a moment. My old self would have replied immediately, sure, I'm here. Let me come by. Eager, cooperative, helpful. Instead, I shut my laptop and put it in my bag. I replied, heading out. Monday works. On the drive home, I realized that was the first tiny boundary I'd drawn in months. Nobody clapped for it. Nobody noticed. But for once, my time after hours was mine. The weekend came and went. No office parties, no late-night messages from Clark, just silence. It was almost unsettling. Monday morning, as I dropped my keys on my desk, a calendar invite popped up. One-on-one, HR. Organizer, Melissa. No subject. 15 minutes blocked. Small conference room. People don't love getting invited to HR chats. Usually it means someone's in trouble or about to be. My stomach twisted automatically. I went anyway. Melissa was already there, seated with her tablet. A glass of water in front of her. No file folders, no printed forms. Just a digital notepad and that same calm, observant stare. Relax, she said, seeing my face. You're not in trouble. That's exactly what someone would say if I was in trouble, I answered. It slipped out before I could stop it. One corner of her mouth twitched. Good. You still have a sense of humor. She tapped her screen once. I wanted to ask you a few questions. Off the record, as much as things can be in a corporate building. About what? About workload, roles, credit. The word hung between us. I don't file anonymous complaints, I said. If this is about Friday, I didn't... It's not, she cut in. And this isn't about you complaining. It's about me doing my job. She paused. I see patterns. That's what HR is supposed to do, if we're actually doing it right. I didn't say anything. She continued, I've noticed your name on invoices, on drafts, on project documents. Then your name disappears when the work gets showcased. That's Interesting. Interesting is one word for it, I said. Is it accurate? She asked. I'm not asking you to rant, just to confirm what I'm already seeing. I thought about it, about all the times I'd told myself it was just how things were, how I should be grateful to have a job, the little phrases people use to keep themselves caged. Yes, I said finally, it's accurate. She nodded slowly. Okay. That was it? No big speech, no, we'll handle it. Just that one syllable, like she'd been waiting to get a puzzle piece to slide into place. So what happens now? I asked. For now, she said. Nothing you have to do? Just keep doing your job. Don't hide your work. Copy the right people. Document everything. She met my eyes. And if anything else, happens, send it to me. Not necessarily as a complaint, just as data. Data. It should have felt cold. It didn't. It felt solid. As I left the room, my irritation had shifted into something sharper, more focused, not rage. I wasn't going to flip a desk or storm into Clark's office. That's not who I am. But in that small, quiet HR room, with no audience and no applause, I made a decision I didn't say out loud. I was done playing the hero who cleans up everyone else's messes and gets nothing but a we instead of a name. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something simple and ugly and true. That night, I stopped being the hero. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything. Tuesday mornings started like any other. Cheap coffee, slumped shoulders, keyboards clacking like teeth. But there was a tension in the air, the kind you don't notice until you move through it. People talked quieter. Ethan avoided eye contact. Clark was nowhere to be seen. By 10 a.m., the reason walked through the door. A client, the one whose contract basically paid for our entire department, had requested an emergency meeting. In person, today. Clark had been bragging for weeks that he had everything under control, that he was refining the messaging, that leadership was thrilled with his direction. All lies. See, Clark didn't know the details of the project. He never did. He didn't read documentation. He didn't know the numbers. He didn't understand the system architecture. Whenever someone asked a technical question, he'd say, "Loop in my team," like we were his personal search engine. But leadership wanted him to present today, the face of the team, the strategic mind, the one taking ownership. He walked in 20 minutes before the meeting, pale, jittery, clutching a folder that looked suspiciously thin. "Hey," he snapped at me, "can you send me the final report? ASAP. "I already sent it," I said. "Friday morning." "Well, send it again." I didn't. I simply pointed to his inbox. He scrambled, clicking through emails, swearing under his breath. His panic should have given me some satisfaction. It didn't. It felt, predictable. Like watching a slow-motion crash you warned someone about months ago. The meeting was at 11. At 10:59, Clark pulled me into the hallway. "Stay close," he whispered. "If they ask anything detailed, jump in for me." "No," I said. He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. No." The hallway went still. "I'm not doing your presentation for you," I said, voice steady. "Not this time." His face twisted. Not angry, not yet. More like disbelief. Like he'd just been told gravity stopped working. "You're part of the team," he hissed. "This is about all of us." Funny how we became us when he needed rescuing. "You got this," I said, stepping back. "You said so yourself." His jaw clenched. For a second I thought he might actually yell. Instead, he turned and walked into the conference room with the stiff posture of a man walking into a firing line. I watched through the glass wall. The client asked the first question 2 minutes in. A basic question, a question Clark should have been able to answer in his sleep. He froze. "Try again." Rephrased question. He stuttered. Third attempt. Simpler vocabulary, gentler tone. He rambled. The meaningless corporate soup he always used when he didn't know something. People exchanged glances. The client's lead architect leaned back in his chair with the slow, unmistakable posture of someone realizing they've been lied to. Chaos doesn't always come as shouting. Sometimes it comes as silence. By the halfway point, Clark was sweating, talking too fast, contradicting himself. At one moment, he said the integration was already completed. 5 minutes later, he said we were in early stages. He mixed up dates. He took credit for workflows he couldn't describe. The worst part? He kept glancing toward the glass wall, looking for me. I didn't move. By the end, the client asked a question I knew was coming. Who actually handled the operational blueprint? Clark opened his mouth. No sound came out. Then Ethan, of all people, spoke from the far corner of the room. That was him, he said, pointing at me through the glass. Everyone turned. Clark's face went red, then pale, then a color I'd never seen on a human being. The client nodded once, slowly. We'll be following up. Meeting over, they filed out quietly. Clark stayed seated, staring at the table like it had betrayed him. When he finally walked out, he didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. He just went straight to his office and shut the door. But the real shift came an hour later. Melissa appeared beside my desk. No tablet this time. No notes. Just a calm expression and a question. Can we talk? We stepped into an empty phone booth room. She closed the door behind us. I spoke with leadership, she said, and I spoke with Ethan. My chest tightened. About what? About patterns, she said. About credit. About responsibility. She paused. About misconduct. Misconduct. The word hung in the air like a dropped vase. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't have to. Then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone, opened the voice memo app, and pressed play. Clark's voice filled the tiny room. The kid will never say anything. He wants to be liked. I dump things on him, he cleans them up, and everyone thinks I'm the one leading. Works every time. Some people are just built to be under someone. My stomach twisted. He kept talking. The party? Please. I wasn't going to waste my Friday doing that crap. He paid for it. His idea. And he won't say a word because he's scared of conflict. A quiet click. Recording ended. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Not rage, but something colder. Awareness. How did you get that? I finally asked. Ethan recorded it, she said. He brought it to me after the party. It was like feeling the floor tilt under my feet. Why? I asked. Because he was tired of watching you get stepped on, she said simply. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned slightly toward me. You don't have to decide anything now, she said. Just know, this is no longer your burden to carry. I nodded slowly. But here's the truth I didn't tell her. It wasn't about burden anymore. It was about what came next, and I already knew. I left the room and walked back to my desk, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. Not the angry, impulsive kind. The precise kind you get when a picture finally comes into focus. For years I'd been keeping everything together, stitching our team's reputation with my own hands. Now I was letting the seams rip. Emails slipped through the cracks. Tasks assigned verbally to me went unanswered. When someone asked for updates, I redirected them, politely, to Clark. When he missed deadlines, I didn't step in. When he forgot deliverables, I didn't remind him. When leadership asked for documentation, I sent them everything. Timestamps, versions, authors. No commentary, no accusations. Just the truth. The kind of truth that doesn't scream. It accumulates. By Thursday, leadership was asking questions. By Friday, they were scheduling internal reviews. By the next Monday, Clark wasn't in the morning meeting. No email, no explanation. People whispered, glancing at his empty chair. Ethan leaned over to me and murmured, "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" Leadership called him in for a performance audit. "It's bad," I didn't answer, because this was only the tremor before the real collapse. And the collapse was coming. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. Clark came back on Wednesday morning, not with his usual swagger, not with a coffee cup, not with a Bluetooth earpiece, not with the rehearsed smile he used like a mask. He walked in stiffly, eyes red, face pale, shoulders curled inward as if trying to disappear inside his suit. People watched him the way animals watch a wounded predator. Cautious, silent, waiting to see if it can still bite. He closed his office door. Hard. It didn't matter. Damage like his doesn't stay behind a door. By noon, leadership summoned the whole department to the big conference room. No agenda, no explanation, just a calendar alert that made everyone look up at each other with the same question. Is this it? I took my usual seat near the back. Ethan sat next to me, jittery legs shaking under the table. Melissa stood by the wall, arms folded, expression unreadable. A few minutes later, Clark entered. He looked smaller, like his edges had been sanded down. He sat at the front, but he didn't face us. He stared at the table, fingers tapping nervously. Then the director of operations, Patel, walked in. Calm, controlled, the kind of calm that signals a storm. "Thank you for joining," she said. "We need to address some concerns regarding leadership conduct, project ownership, and representational accuracy." Representational accuracy. Corporate for lies finally caught up to someone. Clark lifted his head with the weak defiance of a man who still believed he could talk his way out of anything. "If this is about the rollout meeting," he began, "I've already explained." "It's not just about the meeting," Patel cut in, tone flat. "Multiple issues have come to our attention." Her eyes flicked briefly to Melissa, a signal. Melissa tapped her tablet, and the conference speaker clicked on. Then it played. Clark's voice, word for word, unfiltered. "The kid will never say anything. He wants to be liked. I dump things on him. He cleans them up." People froze. Someone sucked in a breath. Another whispered, "Holy shit," under it. Clark lunged forward, slamming his palm on the table. "This was taken out of context." "Context?" Patel asked quietly. "The context appears to be you admitting to misrepresenting your team's work," he sputtered. That's not accurate. I mentored, I supported." But she wasn't done. Another recording played, then another. Him bragging, him mocking, him taking credit, him planning which responsibilities to dump on me next. Him flat out saying he didn't need to know the details as long as the team covered for him. Every sentence was a nail in his own coffin. No yelling came from the table. No one interrupted. No one defended him. The silence was the verdict. Finally, Clark turned toward me, desperate, angry, bewildered all at once. "Why didn't you say something?" he hissed. "Why didn't you come to me directly? We could have sorted this out." I met his gaze, steady, calm. "I wasn't obligated to protect you from yourself," I said. "Not anymore." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked around the room, searching for an ally, a friend, a lifeline. No one met his eyes. Not Ethan, not the analysts, not even the people who used to laugh at his bad jokes. Because that's the thing about arrogance. It makes you untouchable until the moment you slip. Then everyone remembers every cut you left on them. Patel gathered her papers. "Clark, please come with me." He stood slowly, like someone had turned gravity up just for him. When he walked out, he didn't look back. The door closed with a soft click that somehow felt louder than the recordings. The room stayed silent for a moment longer. Then Patel's voice came over the speaker from the hallway. "Effective immediately, Ethan will step in as interim team lead." Ethan looked shocked, speechless, like he'd been handed a live grenade wrapped in gift paper. People clapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but sincerely. I didn't clap. I didn't need to. I just inhaled slowly, feeling something settle inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Space. After the meeting, as people filed out, Ethan grabbed my arm. "That wasn't me," he said. "Getting promoted, it's because you're good," I said. "Don't shrink from that." He swallowed and nodded. Melissa approached next. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. You know, leadership's been exploring restructuring options, she added, casual, but not really. There's an opening in the systems strategy. Senior role. They asked me if you might be interested. I blinked. Me? You, she confirmed. They'd been noticing your work for a while. Of course they had, because when Clark wasn't stealing it, my name was finally on it. I didn't answer right away. I let myself sit with the feeling. Not excitement, not pride. Something calmer, something deeper. A sense of being aligned with myself again. I'm interested, I finally said. Melissa smiled gently. I thought you would be. That afternoon I packed my things, not to leave the company, but to leave the department that had molded me into a shadow. I moved my desk to the new floor with its brighter lights, quieter corners, and people who looked up and nodded in real acknowledgement, not obligation. When I sat down at my new workstation, I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen for a long moment. It felt like a beginning. Not dramatic, not loud, just right. Later, as I walked out to the parking lot, the winter air was sharp and clean. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Thanks for not letting him break you. I typed back, thanks for helping me stop breaking myself. When I got in my car, I didn't rush to start it. I sat there, letting the quiet settle over me. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, the kind that feels like room to breathe. Clark didn't show up the next day. HR sent a company-wide update by noon. Leadership transition effective immediately. No name, no drama. Just a sentence closing a chapter. He'd built his whole career on the backs of people like me. He thought we were endless, invisible, replaceable. He learned, too late, that the people you step on are sometimes the ones holding up the entire floor. And when they finally step away, the fall is loud, but the peace afterward, that's silent. And for the first time in a long time, silence felt good.